Hey there guys, Sonic Sephora here, and before I start the video, I just want to say that the reason I haven't released a video in a while is because I'm absolutely flabbergasted by the amount of views my SML video got. I mean, I created this channel not a long time ago, but I'm still getting a ton of views on this. It's my third video and it has like thousands of views. This is an amazing milestone for a small channel, so I just want to thank you guys so much. But anyways, let's get into the video. Indie gaming has somehow become one of the most massive genres of gaming, but everything has a history behind it. It's not like indie games just became popular overnight. So today I'm going to track the history of the popularity of indie games back to its roots in early YouTube culture. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the age of indie games. Woo! Now just let me preface this part of the video by saying that a lot of these games don't hold the relevance they once had, but they are important to studying the history of indie gaming. But trust me, you'll see some real classics on here. But anyways, the first one that released but didn't become popular until 2012 was Minecraft. It came out in 2009. But as I said, it gained popularity in 2012. By May of 2012, over 4 million Minecraft videos had been uploaded to YouTube, which is insane. Entire channels were dedicated to this game, and I'm sure that most of the people watching grew up with them, like DanTDM. As of now, Minecraft videos have over 1 trillion views. Wow. To put that into perspective, that is about 992 billion more views than people on Earth. In 2010, there were a lot more well-regarded indie games that came out, like Super Meat Boy, Limbo, and Happy Wheels. I remember Happy Wheels actually holding quite a bit of relevance even past this whole era. And despite the fact that it was a Flash game, it's still available on TotalJerkface.com since they switched to Java, and they didn't even have to delete the old levels. Of course, we can't ignore definitely the 2 biggest indie horror games from this era that were probably part of FNAF's big success: Slender and Amnesia. I've only really played or even watched someone play Slender out of those two, so I don't have the adequate knowledge to talk about Amnesia, but I know a decent amount about Slender. Slender is of course based on Slender Man, and trust me, there were a lot of rip-offs of this game, some of which were also pretty popular, like SpongeBob Slendy Pants, which was just a weird reskin with SpongeBob, and an arguably weirder game, Slendy Tubbies, which somehow spawned a fandom. In addition to that, there was also the game Slendrina, which became a series, and that even led to a pretty popular series that came after this era. Speaking of post-FNAF, I don't think that many people will argue with me if I say that FNAF is probably one of the most important indie games of all time. It made the indie gaming scene absolutely massive. It blew up. There was a time when Minecraft and FNAF were the games that absolutely ruled the internet. The original FNAF trilogy was easily the peak of this game. I feel like the era of indie games being huge lasted from 2014 to 2018. I mean, indie games are still popular, but we'll get into that later. This era gave us viral hits with huge fandoms, like as mentioned before, FNAF, which I am actually a pretty big fan of, but there's also Bendy, Cuphead, Undertale, Hollow Knight, Stardew Valley, Baldi, Hello Neighbor, Doki Doki Literature Club, and do I really have to bring it up? Yandere Simulator. Now, I don't like all of these games, but most of them had a huge player base and an even bigger fan base. For example, as a kid I was like a huge FNAF fan, but I only ever played like a few nights of the first two games until recently when I got them on Steam. And I was playing them on my friends' phones and computers. But the thing is that most of these brought something cool, interesting, and unique to the table. I'd consider some of these games my favorites in certain genres, like how Undertale has to be my favorite RPG. And also, despite the fact that every Cuphead session I plays ends with me having to clean the debris of my broken Switch controller, it still draws me back. And you have to be pretty special to draw me back to a game I rage at. Bendy is definitely a top horror game for me. FNAF is my personal nostalgia pick, and I love how unique it used to be. Baldi has a real cool aesthetic, and Hello Neighbor, well, it was trying with the AI system, but we all know how that turned out. And the less said about Yandere, the better. You needed to be alive in this era to understand how peak this was for the gaming space. It was absolutely insane. Oh yeah, I forgot. Slendrina, who I mentioned in the last chapter. This actually led to the hit indie game Granny. Remember Granny, guys? I never played it. This is humiliating.
Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
Apparently not.
As a wise man once said, all good things come to an end. At the end of 2018, the FNAF series was seemingly done after the release of Ultimate Custom Night, and the last chapter of Bendy had come out with no signs of a new chapter, and the other games just becoming the new norm. Things were starting to look up again in 2020 with the promise of a new Bendy game, but a certain worldwide event that I probably shouldn't mention on YouTube caused it to be delayed about 2 years. After most of the hype had died down, I literally only learned that this game came out last year. It's a good game, but the hype was almost gone. Yeah, that event led to a lot of slowdown in the game development field. Thankfully, that eventually ended, but we have bigger problems than a lack of games now. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Oversaturation. Now this mainly applies to the indie horror games, but I feel like it's a mix of oversaturation and sanitization of horror. This really started with Poppy Playtime and FNAF Security Breach, both of which I hate and I have to take frequent breaks from playing just because of how bad they are. Security Breach takes place in a neon mall with animatronics that look like they get waxed daily, and Poppy Playtime takes place in a generic warehouse with a bootleg Elmo. This gets even worse with Rainbow Friends and Garten of Banban. Rainbow Friends is, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually a goddamn kids game. And Banban, aside from having a merch button on the menu from launch, has smooth models with the good lighting and colorful hallways. That doesn't exactly fit the description of horror. Now there have still been good games after this era, like Deltarune Chapter 2, but they're often overlooked because of this manufactured quote-unquote horror, prepackaged with lore for game theory to analyze and a marketable mascot. As someone who's trying to get into game development, this shit triggers me so much. I'm sure there are amazing indie games that are being overlooked for Ploopy Loopy's Evil Factory with 100 sequels already planned to release. What is that name I came up with? Ploopy Loopy. But the thing is that just because there are some bad indie games out there now, doesn't mean that things can't change. Even we can change things. You, yes you, could be the next Toby Fox. You could be the next Scott Cawthon. Don't stop dreaming just because there are some bad games that are getting a lot of success. we need to stay hopeful. We've been proven wrong in the past with the Deltarune. Hopefully that trend continues. I've been Sonic Sephora. I'll see you later.